Thank you for tuning in to Franchise Euphoria. 10 plus years running strong. I'm Josh Brown, founder and host, and by day I'm a franchise lawyer, but in my spare time I love meeting and speaking with people in and around the franchise world. And that's what this podcast is all about. We talk with franchisees, we talk with franchisors, and we talk with those who help both franchisees and franchisors with their businesses, so you can take a little bit from their experiences and apply it to your own. Enjoy. Hello, welcome back to Franchise Euphoria. I'm thrilled today. I've got Tony DiPietro. I think I got that right, Tony, from Biggby.
You nailed it. Thank you.
I nailed it. Thanks, man. So you oversee the emerging markets for Big B Coffee. Obviously a franchise, a growing franchise, and an interesting franchise because for many reasons, but coffee has been one of those markets where it's ever evolving, right? I mean, there's the original coffee places, then you've got what they've kind of turned into, which is, I'm sure they sell some coffee, but they sell a whole lot of lattes and other kinds of stuff as well. And I know with Biggby, one of the interesting things that I've been seeing is just how they've kind of evolved over time, both in their footprint, their style, their look, their feel. So happy to have you on to kind of talk about all that, since you head up all their new and emerging markets, and we'll talk a little franchising today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I look forward to our time together.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell me your background, Tony, though. Like, how long you been with the brand?
I've been with Big B Coffee for 22 years. When I started, we had 4 locations open, and the journey has led me to where I am today. Big B Coffee's always been an exciting brand to work with. Even from the beginning with Bob and Mike, we've always had a mission, right? And has it changed over time? A little bit, but it's always gotten better. So when I was brought into the organization, I was the district manager for Toledo, Ohio. We had 4 stores open. We were buying a chain of 5 coffee shops, a local independent shop down in Toledo. I was brought in to flip them to Big B Coffee and run the market. Loved it. I ran 2 stores myself day in and day out. I was behind the counter, slinging drinks from open to noon. And it was really where I cut my teeth on operations and what it was like to be, I wasn't a franchise owner, but how to run a coffee shop. Did that for about 4 years. Then I was brought to the home office as director of operations. So again, continued the operations theme. Got to work with a lot of great owner operators, opening up their store, supporting them through profitability, as well as just being a resource for them. Then I did that again for about 8 years. And then till now, I've been in development. And it was a hard left turn to get into development. I appreciate Mike and Bob trusting me so much, because I was basically going to start doing what Mike McFall had done up until this point. So it was a huge honor, right, to get that trust. Throughout that whole time frame, it was all about relationships, right? Running stores, it was about the relationship with the consumer, with your staff, operations, with current franchise owners, helping them out, being there as a resource. And then now in development, it's about building relationships with new people looking to come into the organization. Loved every minute.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, it's not too many people who've been a part of a system, that's grown like Biggby has, really from the beginning, right? How many locations now does Biggby have?
We have, I got my board behind me. We have 286 open, another 146 in development, for a total of 532 stores. across 13 states currently. We set a goal a couple years ago to have 500 stores open by the end of next year. We're on track for that. And then we have a goal for the end of 2028 to have 1,000 units open. And it's all tracking, right? We traditionally double in size every 3 to 5 years.
How do you develop? I mean, this is such an interesting question to me, and I think to a lot of people in the audience, but how do you go about developing a market? I mean, do you, excuse me, um, you do you look at where you're at and you say, I mean, when you're first getting going, right? 20 some years ago or even 15 years ago, you're just getting going. I think the natural thing a lot of people do is they look at the markets that they're in where they've had some success and they say, hey, why don't I find other markets that are similar to this market? I mean, that seems to be like a logical thing to do. But once you get past that, where it's becomes more, it's not as easy as just looking for, cities that are comparable or locations. There's a lot of franchisors that struggle with how you establish and grow in markets that make good sense, both from operation side, distribution side, managing those together. Because a big problem that a lot of franchise systems end up having is they want to say yes to people who, reach out, 700 miles away, but they don't really have a distribution side down. And the challenge of being able to tell somebody, hey, yeah, we're certainly interested, but let us kind of get these things in place. I'm curious how you guys went about it, since you've obviously lived through it.
Yeah, and it's evolved over time, right? Having one philosophy and then saying, okay, well, hey, let's try another philosophy. And that's, you've got to be willing to try new things. But today we limit our what we call emerging marketplaces right now. So our current emerging markets are Idaho, Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia, Illinois, 5. And we're going to keep it at 5 right now. I'll never say never, but we're not looking to expand outside of the states that we're currently looking at, but we'll listen to everything on a case-by-case basis. Our biggest support that we can give these, and I'll call them trailblazers in these new markets, right? It's about them understanding the concept, us supporting them in those new markets, and then quickly getting to 5, 6, 7 stores per population density as quickly as possible, because the best way we can support them is getting more stores in that marketplace. For a couple of reasons, for one big reason you mentioned, logistics. We have a great vendor partner in Cisco, and we can ship out of our main hub, out of Grand Rapids, anywhere. And then the local Cisco houses will help us up on the more generic, I'll call it, products. But once we can also get to 5, 6 locations, then we'll have the volume there to have all the product put into Cisco. So we have a short-term vision and then a long-term vision. Another thing that helps in having stability in a marketplace with those types of numbers of stores is also 6, 7 stores, they could form a co-op that are run by the owner-operator. So now you're helping on the other side of that, of getting branding, more dense, more information out to the community.
Are you guys selling one at a time? Or are you looking for multi-unit operators? I can't remember with Big B.
Well, traditionally, we looked for owner-operators. Store one, year one, right? We truly believe that's a competitive advantage of ours. However, we will, again, look at each scenario on a case-by-case basis. And if we find the right partners out there, then sure, we'll take a look.
Get somebody, you get somebody who's already operating a bunch of other franchise locations, maybe a different brand, and they want to come in and buy 5, 6, 7, whatever, some sort of pack. You're probably open to that. But you guys, when you say the competitive advantage, I'm curious, what's the competitive, what is that big competitive advantage by getting that one person, one store up and going?
Their involvement in that community, right? We're so focused, and we coach and mentor our owners. If you want to run a successful coffee shop, we have the systems and processes within the four walls, right? And you don't need to almost waste mental energy on that. There's no necessary a creativity to that. Where we need and want your creativity is how are you going to engage the consumer inside your four walls? And again, it's about building relationships. And then how can you take those community ties and support those individuals in the community, right? Because then they'll support you. And if that's not what you're about, I believe they're going to see right through that, right? It's, and we have all types of programs and that help franchise owners do just that. And world-class customer service too, within our four walls. And that is
I really like that. I mean, Tony, I like that because, so often, a knock on franchising is, oh, you just suck away. It's not creative. It's just the same stuff in every location. And I always tell people, I go, that's really not true. I mean, what most of the good and successful franchise brands, their systems and processes are boring. And that's what you want to be boring because they work and they're boring and, you're not changing them every day. You're not doing them different all the time. Yes, you're thinking through ways to make them more efficient. But most good franchises take on or try to have their franchisees take on the spirit of that community that they're in, because people, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is, I always get a kick when people go, I'm not going to go to a franchise, I'm just going to go local. And I go, there's really nothing more local than a local franchisee. They live in your community. Most of the money stays in the community other than the royalties and other small fees. Whereas, if you have a typical corporate type of environment, all the money comes out of that community, with the exception of what you're paying people. So franchising is actually as local as it gets, just like a typical entrepreneur opening up their store. And at the end of the day, while people want to buy local, they also want consistency. They want consistency in product, in availability, in service. And I always tell people, people will go to, Bob's Sub Shop until they go to Bob. They're not going back to Bob's Sub Shop, even though it's the local one, right? They're going to go to the place where they get, the good service, the good food. So I think that's interesting. I think that's a really good point that people have to understand, that like when you get into franchising as a franchisee, franchisors want you to be creative. They want, in fact, some of the best creations that franchisor systems get are from franchisees. 100. Hey, what about this kind of, right? You've probably seen it, Tony. You've probably seen it over the years where franchisees have made suggestions and you guys are like, yeah, damn, that's a good suggestion.
And we live for that, right? We have a number of committees where we pull the franchise owners in. They're part of the process, right? They're on the front lines every day. If we're not listening to them, then we're doing something wrong, right? And I always believe if you know everything, it's time to move on, because you're never going to learn, right? You always have to have this ability to learn each and every day. Now back to systems and processes inside the store, that also allows for the scalability of that. First off, a single unit owner operator, then to go open 2, 3, and 4 and use the Big B model to create wealth. But then they still have this creative outlet of, guerrilla marketing stuff, try it. Let us know how it works out, right? What are you passionate about in your neighborhoods? Schools, especially arts and music, they need all the help in the world right now. Athletic teams, churches. Whatever you're passionate about, run with it, right? And that referral from it, as you know, referrals, if somebody gives me a referral, Tony, you got to try this restaurant. I might have 22 coupons sitting in the junk drawer for that place, but I never went there. But Josh told me to go there. So I go there and it's awesome. But then there's also that psychological influence that Josh, I trust. He had a great experience. I'm expecting I'm going to have a great experience too. And now you just have to live up to that in the store. And that person's coming in already with the mindset of, oh, I don't know what this is going to be like. Oh, this is going to be great because Josh told me it was going to be great. And it's so awesome.
Where have you seen, I mean, obviously, tying into emerging markets ties, directly and indirectly into consumer trends, buying trends. I know, I'd be curious your thoughts on, obviously the drive-thrus. You're seeing a lot more of the coffee places that really are limiting down their general retail space and focusing more on essentially the parking lot structure to do the drive-thrus, sometimes multiple drive-thrus. What are you seeing at Biggby in terms of, I know generally speaking, if you have a drive-thru and it's set up the right way, you can see significant increases in revenue so long as you've got the training and the service side down to be able to handle that while you're handling the in-store traffic as well.
Regardless of the model, that customer service, they've got to feel that smile through the box at the drive-thru if that's the option. The one thing I believe we do well is we have multiple different options that become a real estate play for that franchise owner when they're looking for real estate out there. We have a drive-thru only. We have a modular drive-thru. We have our traditional end cap with a drive-thru and a lobby, right? We have kiosk locations. So when they go out there, especially in hyper-competitive marketplaces, everybody wants to drive-thru. Okay, yeah, we can put a drive-thru in a 400 square foot place, right? But then also having the willingness to say, look at every opportunity and say, hey, how could we make that work? Not how can we not make that work? And that's important. Again, going back to the willingness to listen to learn, and you have to have that all the time.
I went to I won't say the coffee place. It was a great experience, but I won't say the name. I went to a coffee place, and I went and I'd been there before, and it's near my house, and I go through the drive-thru. This is maybe a couple months ago, and literally, Tony, I'm at the drive-thru, waiting for the person to say, hello, what can I get for you today? And the person goes, hi, Josh, welcome back. And I was like, who's watching me? And I go, wow, I'm sitting there at a drive-thru. I'm just looking at a menu board. I go, wow, that was amazing. And the person goes, well, we've got video here, and we always try to make notes and make that. What a cool personal experience that was. Like she didn't go, hi, what can I get for you? Okay, next. She goes, hey, Josh, welcome back. And I was at first it just really caught me off guard. But how cool is that?
Right. And if you take care of your staff, I'm assuming that barista that serviced you, that wasn't her first day on the job, right? There's no problem with employees today or baristas, right? If you look at it, Mike McFall always says that. It's kids, people today, my generation, the generation before that said the same thing. Kids today, right? No, nobody shows up at their first day of work saying, oh, how am I going to stink at my job today, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of times bad management, right? And our philosophy is supporting people and building a life that they love. Us for our franchise owners, for our vendors, for the communities we do business in. And there's a trickle-down effect, right? We're looking for franchise owners who are going to do the same thing with their sphere of influence, their staff, their communities, right? And this isn't all about rainbows and unicorns. It's about, it makes good business sense too. Because if you treat your staff well, they stay around longer, you spend less money on training, your customers get serviced better, they build relationships with their customers, and that's what it's all about. And you're helping a young adult get some real life skills too, and support them in their next journey in life. We have a lot of stores that have multiple staff that's worked there for years. Right?
Do you guys have, at this point, do you guys have staff that have literally started there, whether working the drive-through or working the register or whatever, that have become franchisees? I mean, do you guys promote from within?
That has happened. Another example of that is these legacy families. Some of our first franchise owners, I met their children when they were in middle school. Cute behind the counter or in the stores. Now they're adults with their own kids and own Big B coffee shops, right? Those are the coolest stories in the world, right? And
what's your way? I mean, as Tony, as we finish up here, what's your way to stick out in the market? I mean, obviously you're focused on, you've got these 5 markets, that you mentioned earlier. I imagine you're traveling around a decent bit, and focusing on that growth. There's a lot of coffee places, but there's a lot of need, right? So when Biggby, what's the North Star that we just continue to do this? We know competition is going to come and go. We know there's only certain things we can control. What's that focus for Biggby?
If you can allow me an extra minute on this, I think it starts off on why people turn to Big B Coffee, right? And that is, they're tired of working a 9-to-5 business setting. A lot of people love that. That's great companies they work for. But some have this entrepreneurial spirit, right? And they want to spread their wings and go off on their own. That's one. 2, you've got people who've always wanted to start their own business, but just don't know how, right? That was, scared the heck out of me as well. And number 3, wanted to spend more time with their families and support their communities, but they lack the time, money, and resources to do it. Those are the types of people that are coming up to us. How we can support them, I think we've already gone over some of the points, but people and culture in our organization, right? What our essence is. And that just doesn't stop, with the home office staff. It goes to our vendors, community, society as a whole, the planet. And then systems and processes, we touched on that because that gives individuals who never started their own business before that ability to do that and then scale it, right? And create wealth for them and their families. And then finally, product and innovation. We touch base on the different models we have. Our beverages are second to none.
I imagine you guys at this point have a test kitchen, probably constantly going testing new product, which, that's a big thing because, one of the things that I know you've probably seen over the years is all these franchisees are the lifeblood of a franchise system. But it's also, what have you done for me lately too? Because you come in and you provide all this support to get them going, and there's huge value there. And then at a certain point, they know how to run their store. They don't really need that training anymore. But you as a franchisor have to have that ongoing value add so that they continue to be happy with paying royalties, getting value from the brand, all that. But oftentimes it's that product innovation that's huge because you got to keep that fresh. You got to have the staples, but you got to keep that kind of fresh and seasonal and all those things.
And what's next down the horizon, right? I wake up, I'm 55 years old, I wake up, I have hot coffee, right? Younger people, my kids, 24, 20, 16, they very rarely drink anything hot. It's always cold. So, and we've offered these options, hot iced or frozen, for espresso-based drinks since I joined the company 22 years ago. But now what's next is these energy type. They want caffeine and energy, but not in a coffee form. Boom. Okay. We have our boost line up for that. And it's always what's going to happen next. But then also focusing on the franchise owner standpoint is you don't want to have SKU sprawl on products, right? We've got to have good profit margins on our beverages, etc. And we really focus on those things, such as initial investment, keeping that as low as we possibly can. We want to allow more people to join Big B Nation than not allow them to. And that's, the fun part. Sometimes you're having a call, you treat that person with respect. They might not be able to do it then, but they call them back 3 years later and say, I'm ready to go now. Thank you. And Josh, end of the day, worst case scenario, we treat a prospect with respect and dignity, regardless if they can financially do it or not. Worst case scenario, they love the brand, they become a consumer or fanatic, and they go to our stores, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, that makes good sense. I mean, for those who are contemplating, buying a franchise or want to reach out, should they just go to the website, the Big B website, and is there a tab for franchising, or what's some good contact information?
Yeah. Well, bigbfranchising.com you can go to. And you want what? I'll give you my phone number here. It's 517-388-1420. Tony DiPietro, 517-388-1420. Call me. I love talking about this. I love the excitement when people want to start their own businesses. And are we a good
Tony? I love it, man. I can tell you're passionate about the brand. You've been there a long time. You've been there a minute. You've been there 22 years. You've seen the growth. Thanks for coming on and sharing that. I think this has been very, very helpful. And it's always interesting. Biggby is one of those brands that I just continue to enjoy watching, the growth, and they've certainly grown. I mean, I've been doing franchise law for about 18 years, and it's definitely grown a lot. So keep on the great work, and look forward to staying in touch.
Well, thanks for being a fan. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. If you'd like to get a hold of me or learn more about our franchise services, please go to indyfranchiselaw.com. That's INDY franchiselaw.com. Also, please know that the conversations and information shared on this podcast are for educational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. Until next time, happy franchise.